means a lot to me that you showed up here today. And we have, of course, the best spot of the entire event, right at the very end. So we'll do our best to provide you with as much actionable intel as possible on AI applications, and not just spending money on them, but maybe getting a little bit back from their application as well. So we're going to run through some brief intros just so you know who's talking. My name is Seamus, Ruiz-Earle. I'm the Managing Director of RevOps here at SBI, which the formerly of Carabiner Group. And then we have two distinguished panelists joining us this evening or afternoon. Elio, why don't you introduce yourself first, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Seamus. My name is Elio, co-founder and CEO at ScaleStack. We develop a platform for RevOps and SalesOps teams to orchestrate all of their go-to-market data across systems like the CRM, data sources, third-party like ZoomInfo, Crunchbase, or unstructured data like news, and then bring it all in, make sense of it at scale for like hundreds of thousands of accounts, millions of signals, so that reps can target effectively, as well as marketing teams can prioritize all of their leads depending on all of the different signals. And we do this for mid-sized enterprises and above, so MongoDB is a customer, Harness, and Typeform, and many others.
And then we'll go to Trevor.
Right, Trevor Rodriguez-Templar. I'm the CEO of Visa, and we like to think of ourselves as the operating systems of sales. So essentially orchestration of the entire revenue operations process, and providing an AI bent to it, especially with the advent of generative AI, et cetera, where we were fundamentally transforming the way large enterprises like Honeywell, RingCentral, Lenovo, HP, et cetera, go to market, and transforming the way they interact with their customers and serve their customers. So.
Brilliant. Well, between the two gents here on the stage, their organizations probably have, if not multiple thousands, at least 1,000 customers working across a variety of industries and segments. And so what we've done today is put together a series of questions that we want to ask them about how to basically avoid the missteps of AI, right? Because we think there's a lot of hype around it, but that, we also need to be cautious when evaluating where are we investing, how we're going to deploy. And so that's where our first question is going to be, and we'll start with you, Trevor. What should the executives in the room be cautious about when evaluating the AI solutions, and how, I think most importantly, how do you cut through the noise to know if what you're looking at is the real deal or just a pipe dream that isn't really there yet?
Yeah, I mean, you could throw a stone nowadays, and everyone's got AI attached to their name, or their solution's got Copilot. It's interesting, of course. I think at the end of the day, one, you've got to figure out, why do you need AI? I mean, and that sounds really crazy, but, if you're just going to implement AI because your board tells you to do it, or because you feel it's something as a CIO, you need on your agenda or part of your roadmap, I think you're backing up the wrong tree. First, do you have a problem you need to solve? And then the question is, how can AI help you? Once you figure out, what the use case is, then I think, of course, you've got to figure out who the right partner is. And when I say the right partner, it's not just about whether it's Microsoft, with Copilot, or Salesforce, Salesforce Einstein, or a Visa, or Clary, or Gong, et cetera. At the end of the day, I think, most of the buyers who come and work with us today, at some of the largest companies in the world, are what I call buyer aware. They've done their due diligence. They understand the use cases that are top of mind for them, and they come to us because we're the right partner to help them solve that. What we help you do is help you essentially figure out how we can help you augment your existing processes. There's no silver bullet. I mean, generative AI and OpenAI sounds amazing, but at the end of the day, if you think of generative AI or OpenAI, it's really a syllogism, right? All men are mortal, so Aristotle's mortal, or all women are mortal, so Cleopatra's mortal, right? Think of it as like autocomplete, right? What generative AI can't do for you is it can't do complex computations. So, for example, if I were to say, what's the atmospheric pressure on the fifth moon of Jupiter? OpenAI would think would come back with a stochastic parrot type response that it probably doesn't know it or make it up, right? But with applied physics, we could figure out, who's in this room and why we're in this room as related to, the universe, or, basically Jupiter, et cetera, right? So where I was going with that is, what you need to figure out is, do you have the right partner who can help you take your data, can help you curate your data, provide you with the right intelligence, capture the right signals, and then help you use generative AI, in a sense, to synthesize that information and talk to it. And I think people, once they realize that generative AI by itself is not a silver bullet, but rather it's a question of how do you marry it up in a hybrid fashion, in a secure fashion, like companies like Lenovo are doing today, Honeywell, HP, et cetera, in a secure fashion. I think the value you can get is tremendous. For example, I think the top line impact over the last 2 years was about 150 million. And so from that perspective, I think, I would say, do your due diligence, figure out what you want to do, ensure that the partner you work with understands your data and can help you curate it. Because without the right data and the right, architecture, I think, you're going to be spending a lot of time and money, and the results are just not going to be there, right? So.
Elio, I'll throw the same question to you, but focusing very specifically on, the charlatans in the room. How do we pick those out? Even if, they may be the right solution for somebody, how do you know that they're the right solution for you?
I think two things. One is that I've seen, I started my career and, I was working in mobile. And, that's a first wave that we saw in the last 20 years. And then there was the cloud wave. And I think what we can learn from history is that, if you start from the efficiency gain first, and so the use cases that help you make people more productive, that's usually where the biggest value opportunity lays at the beginning of a new technology like AI, and then you can start inventing new things. And so I think that, the way we look at this is that people today, let's say salespeople, are extremely unproductive. There is studies that says that 70% of the time of a rep is spent on non-selling. And this is a real stat. 72% is the stat that Salesforce measured last year. And so that's where I think AI can provide a lot of value rather than inventing new fancy things right now. They will come in time, and that's how we are seeing things. That the efficiency gain right now is potentially very big. And then the other aspect is value. And I think that we're all trying to figure out how to price AI and how to make sense of the value that is brought. And I think that this would be a combination of SaaS plus maybe outcome-based type of pricing. So I think that that's the way we're looking at this. What we learned from history is that why cloud exists is because developers were tired of doing the basic task of managing infrastructure, and then wanted to devote more of their time to things where humans are better. And so I think the same thing will be enabled by AI.
I think there's an interesting, crawl before you run sort of dichotomy there that we're dancing around a little bit. But one of the areas that I know that people in the room are trying to see the application for is how are we using AI to actually help our decision making processes, right? How can we use it to synthesize data? How do we, build it into our highest stakes conversations in a way where we know that it's dependable, know that we can trust it, and frankly can make those decisions with a little bit more conviction and with a little bit more certainty that, we're making the right call. And so I guess, Elio, I'll ask you, when you think about AI-assisted decision making, what are the common misconceptions? Your tool helps people see a variety of different data sources in a variety of different ways. You would hope they're making decisions based off of that. But when they make the wrong call, right, where are they going wrong? What are the missteps?
I think that I always go back to basics. I think that what AI is really good at is right now is at automating things. And doing things faster than a human would do. So repetitive tasks, things that are done manually are what AI is really good at. And so if we can actually help people decrease the time that they spend and devote to those manual tasks and increase the attention that they can devote to understanding a customer, understanding the insights, rather than collecting the basic insights or the basic data points or cleaning the data or putting the data from a place to another place, that's where I think that the biggest gain can be had right now. And then the other aspect that, the way we look at this is how can we understand, in the prior session, they talked about the customer journey, like, the lead, filtering and prioritization, all that. I think AI can help people better understand like the customer journey from many different perspectives. And so that understanding provides the ability to make better decisions. So I think it's a combination of two things. One is like reduce the time that people have to spend today to manually, collect data from a place and put it somewhere else and, manually orchestrate stuff, and increase the time that they spend actually preparing for the meeting, with all of the data ready. And then the other aspect is like look at the customer like holistically. And so like lots of different perspectives, lots of different inputs that you can read and parse through.
Trevor, it prompts for me a bit of a question around,
Sure.
How do we, when we think about cost-benefit analysis, right? So any of the organizations that you sort of talked about before are investing millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars into these tech stacks, right? And if we're not necessarily sure of where the movement is going, we're not necessarily sure of what this model is going to develop into, how it's going to be used to augment our current existing teams, replace current existing teams. I guess when we think about that at the bottom line, AI adoption can be remarkably expensive, right? Whether that's time, energy, attention, or financial resources. If you were going to be thinking about assessing the ROI of an AI implementation, right? Like, where do you chain to first? And like, what are the indicators that you would look for success or failure? 3 months in, 6 months in, 18 months in, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I mean, I talked earlier about the fact that you've got to figure out what the use cases are that are top of mind for you, right? So I'll give you some custom examples. I think that's the best way to talk about ROI and what they've achieved, right? So let's take Wiz, right? I think most people in the room know about Wiz.io, $24 billion bid from bid from Google, supposedly the fastest growing software company in the world, a customer of mine, so I'll agree with them on that. And I just met with them yesterday with the CEO. So, but what I found interesting about them was, they came from Zscaler, where they had a really successful run, and they'd used multiple tools, and basically silos of information. And they came to this conscious decision that the silos of information, in fact, hindered their growth rather than really help them. So they'd gone with the best of breed type approach with different silos, with different tools like Clary, Gong, et cetera, solving different problems for them in Salesforce. And they came to this realization that really the swivel chair approach was not working for them. And they wanted to consolidate on one platform. And they wanted that one platform to address every part of the sales cycle, right from, ICP, quote, lead, down to, forecasting, predicting revenue, and then, of course, customer success, and then from your close-loop process, and then front-end that with a generative AI type. You can call it Copilot. I don't like the word Copilot too much. Everyone uses it. We call it a chief of staff. And then using an agentic process to essentially automate a lot of the stuff that Elio talked about in terms of what we call the grunt work that AEs do. And the underlying thesis for them was, look, we want our AEs to be productive. We're hiring 500. They hired 500 last year in the last 6 months. They're going to hire another 500 right now. So you've got this rapid pace of growth, this rapid pace of hiring folks. How do you enable these teams, enable them to be productive from day one versus waiting 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month, 2 months? Because at the pace at which they're growing, that just wasn't sustainable, right? So with that in mind, with that kind of business case and problem, they went out to market and spoke to several vendors, including Salesforce, Einstein, Microsoft, ourselves, of course the usual suspects like Gong, Clary, et cetera. And I think the underlying theme was that we led with, and which eventually resulted in them going with us, was run your business your way, and we adapt to your business. And what I mean by that is, for example, the question was, well, how are we going to enable our teams to be really productive on day one? And I talked about generative AI earlier, right? And I think what AI and generative AI has done for us is it's not just about the rote tasks, automation of the rote tasks. I think people have been doing that for a while with automatic workflows, persona-based workflows, et cetera. I think what it's opened up is this ability to really predict the news. You've got a lot of tools out there that can summarize information, create emails for you, et cetera. But I think the real value is when you're able to figure out where you need to spend your time and energy. It's not enough to say, I'm going to basically free up 80 hours in a week or 40 hours in a week and give you this amazing week, because if you can't guide the rep to spend his time in the right place, the right time, you're just not going to get the results you want. I mean, he could be playing golf for all you know, right? So I think a large part of the ROI that we figured out with them, up front was the fact that they knew they had to enable their sales force to be more effective and provide them with a chief of staff or this AI type of Jiminy Cricket on the shoulder who was going to guide them throughout the process, right from adoption to the ability to basically identify ICP, garner new leads, then close the deal, guide them through the forecasting process, etc. And of course, guide their customer success teams on ensuring there was no attrition, et cetera, up front. Because of this rapid growth, they didn't want to lose sight of the customer and, of course, the competition that existed around them, right? So with that in mind, I think the ability to identify up front, what are you trying to achieve? What's the low-lying fruit? Get those quick wins quickly, and then build on that rapidly to achieve, the ROI is really how you approach the process, right? If you don't have something in mind, I just think, people too often think of AI as the silver bullet or this white knight, and it's not. It's a tool. It's exciting because we could, in a sense, we couldn't talk to machines earlier, and now generative AI lets us talk to machines. But machine learning and deep learning have been around for a while, guys, right? I mean, 5-10 years. I mean, the word AI was actually coined in 1964, right? The question of really delivering on AGI is still a long time, a long ways away, right? And if you really talk to Sam Altman or even to Eric Schmidt, he had a really interesting interview at Stanford the other week. Essentially we've accessed all the information that exists in the world today. So unless we have synthetic data and we can do something different, I think AGI is still a very long ways away. So in the absence of AGI, I think autonomous agents, the ability to automate the process, account planning, account research, those are some of the low-lying fruit that you can get, which adds instant value. Because think about it, I mean, if you guys are in sales enablement or in operations or even in sales, the number one complaint you're going to get from your audience or from your customer is, well, why am I filling all this information into Salesforce? What am I getting out of it? And I'm using, and pardon me, I mean any CRM. I don't want to just say Salesforce. I mean, I worked there for 4 years, and Mark's my mentor. He's going to be like, okay, great. So now he's dissing us. But really, ever since Tom Siebel, first went to Larry in 1995 and said, I want to manage my sales team. And Larry was like, awesome, go build something, right? And then he got Siebel, and then Mark came along, and, we had the cloud. We've never really delivered on the promise of delivering value to the AE or to the end user, right? And I think what AI is now giving us that ability to do is actually give value, give them back time, but more so guide them on how they can use that time to do the one thing every one of them understands, which is they want, coins in their pocket, and they want it rapidly, right? So I hope that helps.
I think it's interesting because we get so caught up in the hype from time to time of here's this miracle, this miracle tool. And to be fair, it is performing miracles left, right, and center. I mean, I don't know that I would have been able to, generate a briefing doc in 20 seconds before generative AI has come out. But I think that's interesting about grounding yourself in the same sort of business case evaluation that we would any other investment, right? Without getting too caught up in the world of possibilities, narrowing your parameters, and then being able to move ahead. You also went into a bit of a legacy systems conversation there. So, Elio, I'm going to throw it to you here we have all of these legacy systems that are in place today. I can't tell you how many screwed up Oracle, Salesforce, Dynamics, NetSuite. I'll just throw everybody under the bus, right? Just to make sure we're equal opportunity. But we've got all these systems. They're all screwed up. How should we be thinking about using AI to bring those systems together if we're not ready, willing, or able to rip and replace them and try to start over?
Andreessen, the investor, Ruiz-Earle, just released last month a piece. The title was Death of a Salesforce. And they think, and I agree, that all of the sales workflows will completely change. I mean, maybe Salesforce, and we'll keep using Salesforce because of their success. So let's simplify and use Salesforce. But maybe Salesforce will remain as a data cloud. So where people put, the data in, but there will be a lot of different things that will happen outside. And, in a different piece, someone said that, because AI is so good at writing code, almost like writing software is similar to journalism in the 90s, where like media companies were so powerful because they, hold the power and like the information power, just like software companies have done that because they had developers and they could hire them and pay them a lot of money to develop code. But now that AI can write code, then a lot of people can build apps. And so you will see like an explosion of business apps that serve lots of different purposes. And that's why, in our view, the data, the basic data that powers all of these different apps will be very important. And why we think that like there will be like a number of things that will happen. For instance, for one of our customers, we just orchestrated tons of different data from, across many different like functions, so that they could launch quickly what they call like a coach GTM, which is an agent that like, basically on behalf, a rep can use this like on Slack or like, in other places to ask questions about like lots of different things, from outside data, Zoom info data, Crunchbase data, news data, or like internal data. And so orchestrating all of this is happening outside of Salesforce. And although they pay millions of dollars, our customer, to Salesforce, still today, a lot of things are happening outside. So in the view of many, and us included, like, everything will change in the next 10 years. And particularly in the go-to-market function, because I think that with cloud, we have impacted mostly the product and tech function. But I think that the next revolution will be in the go-to-market function.
The idea of putting another layer on top of legacy systems to be able to make them palatable or usable, I think, is something that unfortunately a lot of us are staring in the mirror and wondering if that's us at any one point in time. Trevor, from a CEO's perspective, you run an AI company. I'm gonna guess, I probably should have verified this before, but I'm assuming you use your own tool internally.
You always drink your own champagne.
Yeah, right? So you always eat your own dog food.
Or drink your own champagne.
Yeah.
You use the word dog food for someone else.
But how are you using, I'd like to hear two components, two perspectives. One is, as a C-suite executive, how are you using AI to make real-time analytics-based decisions? And then how are your customers doing it? Because I think that there's one thing to hear from a purveyor who's using it for themselves, and one thing to hear, this is how the vast majority of people are using it.
So let's start with what my esteemed colleague talked about earlier, the A16Z article, right? In some senses, when I shared with my board, they were like, well, did you help them write it? Because that's been our vision for the last 5 years, and we're huge fans of A16Z, so I will say that too. I'll caveat with that. But essentially what they talked about was the fact that you've gone from a text-only database, which is Salesforce, a relational database, to a multimodal database, which means you have a vector database that can have your generative AI data, structured, unstructured. You've got a relational database that can have your accounts, etc., the text structure. But then the other important part that's there is what we call a time series DB. And what a time series DB, and it's been around for a while, right? What a time series DB allows you to do is timestamp events that happen across the spectrum at any given point in time. So it's almost like, in some ways, going back to the future at any point of time and doing forensics. When you bring all that information together, you suddenly have a new way at which we look at CRM. And I don't know if we're going to call it CRM. We may call it something totally different. But I think Gartner talked about it as well as Forrester as well, that I think, everyone's going to have a co-pilot. Everyone's going to have, if you talk to Eric Schmidt, he says every person in the world will have their own co-pilot, if you want to call it. He calls it text to action, where you can literally talk to your co-pilot and ask it to build TikTok for you. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but that's the vision he has for the next 5 years, right? But from our perspective, when we look at this, we say at Aviso, we don't use Salesforce anymore. I know that sounds crazy considering I'm a large shareholder in Salesforce still. And, I was there for 5 years around the enterprise sales business, but we don't use Salesforce anymore. We just didn't feel the need for it. So what we do is we use a combination of Aviso, and we use HubSpot for marketing still, but we use that and we use our own tools. And essentially, I'll give an example of how we use it and then how my customer Honeywell uses it. So for example, if I wanted to go after, say, Cisco, which is a big engagement for us right now, my rep can put an account plan together in about 8 minutes. And you're like, that's crazy. We use the same thing at Honeywell, and they were taking on average about 32 hours to put together an account plan. And what I mean by an account plan is essentially, it's not the way you use Copilot where you have to use triggers to then form workflows, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm sure some of you use Copilot and can argue till the sun comes up about how it doesn't do things a certain way. I'm just talking from my experience at Lenovo where we just beat them. But, or Salesforce, which talks about agents for SDRs or agents for service agents, et cetera, et cetera. And they're coming with a really big announcement next week about agentic force, et cetera, which will be really cool, I'm sure. Where we're going with this is we think of generative AI and we think of the whole, the AI revolution as being another version of the California gold rush. And what I mean by that is let the LLM providers fight their battles out. We don't know who's going to win. Everyone has an opinion. Some believe OpenAI, some believe, Llama 3, some believe, Meta's going to win, some Gemini, et cetera, et cetera. But what they are doing for you is providing you with the ability to leverage the best and the greatest in the form of open source models, with the exception of OpenAI, open source models that you can take. And you can take these open source models. And the real value is, can you yourself, or can you find a provider who can help you curate your data, collect all the signals across the board, whether it's email, calendar, whether it's your Zoom calls, whether it's your third-party signals from Bombora, et cetera, bring that all together in one place, curate it, provide insights, and then leverage these large language models. So, for example, my guys were really big fans of Vicuna for sentiment analysis of a call. They like Falcon for summaries. They think it's superior to OpenAI. And now they've fallen in love with Llama 3 over ChatGPT Turbo 4. ChatGPT Turbo 3 Plus. Sorry. So, but they like Llama 3 a lot because the accuracy is tremendous, right? And where I'm going with this is, internally we're using it to cut down time because my average productivity per rep right now is around 2.8 million ACV, which is pretty crazy, but we're a small company. We're only about $70 or $80 million, right? So we're pretty small. So it's easy for me to do that, right? But when I look at Honeywell and I look at the ability to deliver 150 million in top line impact and basically change the productivity equation where instead of spending 30 hours building a account plan, they can now do it in 8 to 10 minutes. Instead of spending hours on end going back and forth between their manager and the executive on an exec brief, something as simple as an exec briefing doc, we can now do it for them in about 2 minutes. If there's an account they want to go after, we're able to go on LinkedIn, do a personality analysis, come out with an ICP, and then provide you with the ability to have talking points that are going to resonate with that person. So when you bring all this together with multiple agents working together with a master agent, you can call it Neo in the Matrix, or you can call it Mickey, which is our generative AI chief of staff. I think the value you're getting takes you far away from what CRM can give you. We've always viewed for the last 5 years, and even now, that CRM at best is a lagging indicator. It's looking in hindsight at what could have happened, should have happened. It really doesn't help you predict the future, unless, of course, you look at how deals close, marry that up with your financial information, and then have sophisticated algorithms like we do in machine learning and deep learning that can predict where a certain deal is going to end up based on a Markov analysis or what's happened in the past, right? And then stack algo and algo. But I think the real value is when you're able to marry up what's happening in the business today, right? So when you enter any quarter, you got all these balls in the air. And when you have all these balls in the air, are they real or are they just balls? The only way you can figure that out is knowing what your reps are doing in tools they use. And forgive me, but they don't use CRM. They use CRM to basically report their manager and keep their manager off their case, right? Where they're really living is on phones. They're living in Zoom calls because of the hybrid nature of our business now. They're living in emails. And of course, hopefully the pressing palm to flesh and actually meeting people now that things have opened up, right? So if you can capture that information, you then have a true sense of where the business is going and whether those deals are real or not. And then you can use, the CRM data and the models there to basically what I call trust and validate whether or not that information is real and whether the deal is going to come in and all. So in that scenario, when all of a sudden CRM has taken a backseat, the question then arises, why would you want to pay, I don't know, $70, $80 if you have a really good deal? I know Evan at Teradata is probably a really good negotiator. He probably got it for $20. But why would you want to use a CRM if you're going to pay now another $75 from Agentic Force? You're going to pay another $25 or $30 for Einstein, and then you need a Gong or a Clary or an Aviso on top of that? I mean, it just seems, or an Outreach. I'm sure you guys use Outreach. Everyone does. It just seems kind of crazy, right? Why not just have a system of intelligence and have a dumb database like Oracle that does the same job? And that's what we do, right? So, and that's what a lot of our customers are doing. So, for example, Lenovo has challenged us with reducing they don't use Salesforce, they moved off. Their Dynamics cost by about 50%. BMC's challenged us with essentially reducing their dependence on Salesforce. I look at Dell in some ways as the holy grail because when I was at Salesforce, that's what really put us on the map when we closed Dell. And Dell's come to the realization, and you can quote me, that essentially, I'm not going to say lipstick on a pig, but essentially being able to make Salesforce more user-friendly or convincing reps to enter data in is just not going to happen. So what's their solution? They were trying to build a next-generation sales solution on top of Salesforce, like a lot of people do. But they came to this realization that if we can just find something where we can capture all the signals of what our reps are doing, feed that information into any database, whether it's Salesforce or whether it's Oracle or whatever, so that we have the information we need to mitigate risk and report to Wall Street, but at the same time provide value to our reps by providing them the right information in the right time in context. And we can do this through a simple Google-like interface where they can ask questions and actually interact with their data and get that information in real time. They just think the reps are going to be more productive. Now, do I agree with them? They spend $100 million with Salesforce, so I don't know. But, that's where I think the industry is going. Because remember, industries get disrupted when you least expect it. I mean, I've always seen, there's a saying, right, in the Bible, pride cometh before a fall. I'm not going to get all, Catholic on you guys, but at the end of the day, I always think the greatest disruption comes when things are at this moment in time when people just can't take it anymore in terms of either the money they're spending or the value they're getting is just not there, right? And I think that's what AI has done for us. It's come at the right time, the right place, right?
Elio, I'm going a bit off book. You don't have this question in front of you, so
sure.
We're throwing it at you. Okay. There are, in any of our businesses, hundreds of different places where we could pick to implement and apply AI.
Mm-hmm.
If you were in any of these folks' seats trying to figure that out, how do you go about figuring out the most impactful, least potentially damaging, but balancing those two things together to pick the first place to put AI into an organization?
In the go-to-market function?
Let's say in the go-to-market function, given the people in the room.
Well, I'll go back to what we were discussing earlier. Where are the biggest productivity gains you can get? I mean, literally today, sales and marketing teams are wasting a ton of time parsing through data from many different sources. And so I think that's a wasted time that you can, you were talking about doing the account plan in minutes. So what does that mean? It means that if you can enable that, and that means that the data needs to be clean and rich and from many different sources and bringing the insights in only one place, that if you hire good people, that then in 8 minutes they know what to do and they can spend time, which is what humans should be good at doing, to think through how to approach that customer, think through the questions that they want to ask, to gain a better understanding, rather than basic orchestration of data and let me go on LinkedIn Sales Nav, or let me find some more understanding of this company on Crunchbase, or let me do wasted time to gather the basic data. So I think for me that's the biggest area. How can we enable our sales and marketing team so that they have all of those insights at their fingertips, can generate an account plan based on the account mapping that we have already done, or the lead understanding, maybe not just the person, but what's the team around this person? What is the buying group that is gonna make this decision about cloud migration or a new initiative that they're running? So if you help them have those insights and you have good people, so I think that's also the other aspect that we don't mention enough, then magic happens. And also you can do more collaboration between sales and marketing. Some of our customers, what we are helping them do is better cross-functional collaboration. Because, for instance, most companies have marketing is owning the leads and sales is owning the accounts. and they don't talk. While those leads work at those companies and they are in teams and in buying groups. And so if you help them develop a joint understanding of who are the buyers, who are the companies that they're talking to, and you share data and the ability to generate the data very easily, then you enable more collaboration, hence more productivity, hence less wasted time. So I think I would start from that, give them the insights and not having them spend time, creating or generating those insights.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm going to push you one more time on practical first steps, right? If everybody in here hasn't yet started their AI journey, right? What are the first, and Trevor, you're coming next, so I'm get thinking on them, but what are the first three items, first three steps practically to actually step off onto this AI journey, right? Are we creating a buying committee? Are we creating an evaluation committee? Do we have to, pick which tools we're going to start with? What are the first three things that we think that we need to be focused on?
Yeah, I would do, first of all, take a pulse of, the quality of your data. And, we do start with customers, give us, a sample of your list of leads or list of accounts, and we'll run an analysis of, how well enriches that data. And so you find all sorts of things. Even the best go-to-market teams, you take a sample of their leads list, and 60% are outdated contact data or outdated profiles. So first of all is take a pulse of the data that you have. Then do create multifunctional teams, even one person from sales ops and one person from marketing ops, and let's define what is the biggest pain point. And we are helping another customer of ours who is trying to understand the buying groups, because they realize there is not just one person that buys their technology, but it's a team, a group that will do that. And so we put together those people and start working with them to increase the quality of the data, and then collaborate on a shared understanding of the target. And then three is where is this data going? Right? So I think that given that the cost of developing stuff with AI is going down, there is an instinct to maybe add another screen. And what we recommend is can you for now integrate this into what reps or teams already have? So that you don't distract them and don't have to switch now from sales loft or outreach to another screen, but can you put those insights there so that it's immediately consumable by them? So it's data quality, cross-functional teams, and then where are you going to put this data so that you're quickly enabling them?
Thank you, Trevor. Same question. First three things on an AI transformation journey?
I tend to feel like I repeat myself again. But I think at the end of the day, it's what are the low-lying fruit? What's top of mind? What keeps you up at night? First, what keeps you? Is it top of the funnel? Is it attrition? Is it productivity? Is it growth? Once you figure that out, then the question is, okay, who's the best partner to do it with, right? And it's going to fall on you, and you can have as many people. I'm not big on committees, because I think committees. I've got this one pizza rule that I think is. If there's more people in the room than can have that slices of pizza, then you got too many people there in the first place. So I'm not big on committees. I'm big on collecting feedback and consensus. So the question is, once you figure out what's top of mind, and hopefully you're in a position to figure that out for the company you work for, then I'd figure out quickly who's the right partner. And who's the right people that you can trust to work with that partner. Do a quick evaluation, try and get some quick wins, and then figure out. There's no big bang theory here with AI. We're evolving so fast. The tools that you think are state of art, state of art today, are going to be I wouldn't say obsolete, but definitely not state of the art. In 6 months to 9 months, right? That doesn't mean you keep chopping and changing your mind, because at the end of the day. The question is, you know your business better than anyone else. I always say that. You should. And if you know your business really well, you know what's keeping you up and where you need to add, where you need to get the help. And all AI does is it augments that. Guys, it's not that difficult. Trust me. And it's not that difficult to find the right partner if you do your due diligence. I just say, don't listen to anyone else, form your own judgments, do your homework. And as far as data is concerned, every one of us has got a different opinion on data. I I think cleaning up data is something that's a never-ending process. I've never met a company, whether it's small or big, who tells me they've got an ideal state of data that they can use. So the question is, how do you get data better over time? And the best way to get better data over time is to collect the right information in context with the right signals. Once you start doing that, things improve by themselves. So I wouldn't be over-obsessed with that, right? But what I would be laser-focused on is, hey, if I'm going to go to my CEO and ask for money and ask for funding, or my VP or whoever, let me figure out what are those quick wins, how do I show quick victories, how do I engender trust, how do I take away this concept of AI is going to take away someone's job, that is augmentation, and then, of course, use that as your platform to then, go big, right? Go big and try and get a couple of $100 million in top-line impact, and you're going to be a hero, and I don't know, we'll go from there, right? So, that makes sense?
Hero. That's we like heroes. Let's try to all be.
I think all RevOps people are heroes. It's just unsung. So there you go.
All right, we're going with one last question, then maybe we open up to the audience here, and it's going to be a bit, AI adjacent, right? AI inherently done well is going to be disruptive, is going to be transformational, and I think as executives, we all are in an interesting position of needing to bring our teams along for the ride. And so I guess if you had to think about the next 3 to 5 years of human capital development, people, right? People, process, data, technology is our RevOps monikers, right? The people component often gets overlooked, but what do we need to be building in our people? What skills, what characteristics, what talents, what perspectives? What for a successful AI-driven, AI-first company? What does that mean for the humans in terms of the actual skills and talents we develop? Trevor, we'll start with you.
Cool. I'm going to plagiarize freely here, and I'm going to tell you who from Jensen, right? So if you ask us, so I'm a quant, if you haven't figured that out by now. I'm also autistic, so I feel way more comfortable in numbers than people, so excuse me. And that's why I tend to speak fast sometimes, and I talk in numbers more than I talk in words. But if you asked me 10 years ago, I think my biggest pet peeve was we didn't have enough STEM students in the US, and I felt like we were lagging behind China and India, et cetera, et cetera. But, Jensen made a really good point I think it was about a month ago, 2 months ago, where, the best coders in the world are going to be autonomous agents. What we really need to figure out is, whether it's our employees or whether it's, our children or our students is basically have experts in their field. So you got to be the best at what you're doing. So if you're in finance, you need to understand, how can you use AI to augment your day, and how can you improve it to get better information, extract better information or gold, as they say, from your data, and make better decisions. If you're a salesperson, master your craft. If you're a RevOps person, how can you align yourself so that you know where you can add the best possible impact to your customer set, whether it's customer success or whether it's, your CRO or whether it's your CEO, and use AI to augment it, right? So I think at the end of the day, we don't really have to teach the next generation how to use computers, thankfully. We don't have to teach them because they do it in school. All of them are really familiar with TikTok a lot more than we were. I'm 50, by the way, so than I ever was. So I don't think that's going to be the issue. The issue really is focusing people on being experts in their field, and then giving them the tools so that they can be productive from day one. And what I mean by that is, for the longest time, if you guys have been around like I have, I was in McKinsey, then Salesforce, Oracle, the usual stuff before I took over at Ruiz-Earle. And if there was an account transition, you had to take the guy out to lunch. You had to, pardon my French, kiss his ass. You had to explain how you needed to know about the account. You had to go back to him and hope he'd tell you if that executive didn't like you, had a bad experience. You had to go and pull through hundreds of emails to figure out what the temperature of the account was, who would you target. All of that today is at your fingertips in seconds. You can talk to your data now and get information on what product was sold, when it was sold, what was the influence, what's the temperature of the client, who are your sponsors in there, who do you need to be careful of. So when you can start being productive on day one, and you really don't need to know Aviso, you really don't need to know Salesforce, you don't even need to know, Office. I mean, you need to know Word, of course, I think. But you can have a Google prompt and you can ask all these questions. I think you take away this whole concept of us being subservient to computers in a sense, and us being subservient to these systems where I have to be a Salesforce expert, or I have to learn how to use Salesforce to get data out, or I've got to learn how to do reporting in Tableau. You don't really need to. When you take all that away, all that noise, and the question is, now you have software providing you actual value, and that value is accessible in a simple Google prompt interface where you can ask questions. I think it transforms the way, you talk about productivity, you talk about, onboarding, you talk about the ability to really deliver, from day one, right? And you transform the employee experience. I mean, I hate it when people tell me, hey, you got to spend 2 weeks, 3 weeks onboarding, learning, I don't know, Salesforce and outreach, and then God knows what else, Viso. Who cares about a Viso, right? I just want the information that I can do my job. I want to go out there as a salesperson, and I want to close business. I'm pretty confident I know what to do. If I don't have to update CRM, amazing. If I can get all the information about my accounts, by me asking simple questions using NLP, that's even better, right? That's nirvana. Similarly, for any person in the organization, I don't think I've found a person yet who says, hey, gets up in the morning, is having coffee, looks at his wife and says, sweetheart, I'm really excited. Today I'm going to go update Salesforce, and today I'm going to learn how to build a new report in Tableau. It's going to be an amazing day, an amazing morning, right?
I'm the only one, evidently. Elio,
well, you're a lost case. I'm not going to go there with you. So.
Elio, I'll ask you the same question to bring us home. The talents, the characteristics, if we're recruiting for a new age or even trying to talent develop for a new age, what is going to make the difference between the winners and those left behind when it comes to human capital?
Yeah, I spent several years at Amazon, and the pizza rule was very familiar there. But at Amazon, the idea is we hire builders. And so I think that in the most successful customer teams, we see that people that are in RevOps, SalesOps, in all of these teams that are most successful are not the ones that are process focused, but outcome focused, which are typically a product mindset. And so if you help or hire and train your people to be thinking more like product managers so that they drive home an outcome, I think that the results are going to be better. And that means freeing up their time from manual and repetitive and boring stuff. I mean, that's our mission actually, at ScaleStack, to automate what's boring. And I think that that's what the type of people that you want. So since in the boring world you need a lot of process, but in the less boring world, you think you need to build products. And so builders, product managers, and so people that understand math and people that maybe understand big systems. And I have children and I'm starting to think about what they're going to do. And so big systems, even philosophy, so that you can see the big concept and then you work backwards to define what's needed in detail. So I think builders, product managers mentality rather than process.
Yeah. I think I'm sure all of you guys have heard of it, right? Brian Chesky created quite the stir in Silicon Valley over the last 2 weeks. He was a Y Combinator. You probably heard about it. And he talked about founder mode. And it's interesting because founder mode contradicts everything we learned in business school, in terms of delegation, in terms of hiring amazing people and letting them just do the work they want to do, and then assuming that all of a sudden the company is going to be extremely successful, right? I think where he went and where you went right now is it's right? At the end of the day, you want people who are in the details. They really want to understand how they can make an impact. They care. They want to build stuff, whatever it is. They think out of the box. They're not constrained by titles and norms. They break glass and ask forgiveness later. And Chesky talked about the fact that he's fundamentally changed the way he goes to market from a product perspective because he took away the grunt stuff, right? The project management aspect where you're going to go milestone by milestone and see if a certain feature is released or not. And he's kind of and I think this is what AI is doing, right? It's morphing roles. It's blurring the lines between what is an SDR and what is an AE and what is a customer success manager. Customer success begins from day one because if not, you're in trouble. If your customer doesn't have a great experience from day one and understands that you truly care about them versus just a paycheck, it's not going to work, right? So I think it's blurring roles and it's blurring responsibilities. For example, in product management, you talk about the inbound and the outbound, where the product marketing and the product management role is morphed and people are accountable for both. So I think it's an interesting concept, and I think we're going to see more and more where knowledge workers will help define what these roles are and move away from, constraints. And once you free up the constraints, and you let people think for themselves, and I think it's really exciting. I mean, because I think a lot of the limitations we put on ourselves are are systems driven, process driven, and people driven, right? So. Anyway.
I'll close this out here. It's funny, you both talked about a little bit about education in that scenario, and I was Jesuit educated, so the Catholics, right, have their
me too.
sticks in. But there's a concept of cura personalis, care for the whole person, which when we think about the value-driven elements of a liberal arts education, perhaps that's something we all need to be thinking about. How do we generate a full human? But thank you very much for joining us. Thanks for sharing.